And we are back with The Chosen Journey. Big Money Grip, Steve Karsay, Chapter 9, Closer Mentality, Part 2. I did not, by the way, I actually have that Chosen Journey shirt in the back now. We talked about it in the previous chapter. I have it in some colors. I didn't specifically pick Mets orange and blue, but
I
it
was
just,
wondering.
I swear I didn't. I love orange and blue. Those are like my colors. Those are my go-to. And I like the way it kind of blended off of it with the color of the logo. So that's why I picked it. But of course, now we end up back at Shea Stadium. We didn't intend for that to happen, but that's where the universe led you to. So I wanted to pick it up now. Speaking as far as John Rocker and how life had evolved for you, and for him, obviously, um, Atlanta you knew was a short term stop. Maybe they were going to want to sign you. Probably at this point, once you're there, you already made it this far. Was there talk at all Atlanta as far as contract wise, or you were going to play out the season and see where free agency was going to lead?
Yeah, no, there was no talk at that point. I mean, obviously, getting traded at the end of June, you have July, August, September. They brought Steve Reed and I for to bolster the bullpen and get down the stretch in that tough NL East, and then obviously they wanted to move on from John Rocker, and they found an opportunity to do that. So, like I said, I think it worked out for both teams. I can't speak for the Indians at this point, but I know it worked out really well for Atlanta and for myself.
There was such talk at the time that they were just going to outright release Rocker, or who knows what's going to happen with him. And it's amazing because, he's one of the top closers in the game at that point, and so young, a lefty with power. You just don't see that. And it just kind of came all unwinding at one point. But they bring you in with the year you're having, so they got to be thrilled, like you said. Season plays out. You're granted free agency November 5 of 2001. So
Okay.
now the fun begins. When you start that process, and you're thinking through as far as your needs from a free agency standpoint, what was where was your mind was at? What were your criteria as far as picking your next team?
I wanted to win. At that point, I had made a little bit of money. I wanted to, obviously get the best deal that I could possibly get, and I wanted to find a team where I was going to fit in, and I had an opportunity to win and win a World Series, especially if I was going to be in that place long term. So I let my agent at the time know that, and when he started fielding calls, that was really the criteria that I told him. Not that we would have shut out any other team that might not have been a playoff contender at that time, but in a perfect world, that's really what I wanted.
I presume this was not Scott Boris at the time.
No, actually, the agent I had at the time was Alan Hendricks. He was
The Hendricks brothers.
the Hendricks brothers, and they had quite a few
Yes, they did.
prominent players. And I was fortunate enough to be able to interview them and sign with them from the ripe old age of 18, and they were my agents the whole time I was in professional baseball.
Really well-known guys, and I can tell you, having never met them, but just reputation-wise, was not going to gouge teams, going to take advantage of the players. They were known at the time, straight shooters. Like, it seemed like people who were represented by them got fair deals, and that was kind of the game plan. So, uh, based on your experience at this point, you're still calling the shots, obviously. Like, you're directing them of who to talk to, not to talk to, where you're going to steer to. Like, well, you're letting your agents handle it. How much communication do you guys have at this point from the start of free agency?
You can have as much communication as you want. At the end of the day, when I talk to him, he goes, "I'm going to present you with any of the offers that I get from the teams that are calling me, and at the end of the day, you make the choice. I can direct you wherever you would like to go, and I'll get you the best deal possible. But this is about you, and you make the choice because you're going to have to live and be with this team for however many years that we're going to sign if we're going to get a long-term deal." And that was fair. I just told him go do his work, do what he needed to do. And we kept in touch, once a week, and he would just update me on any information that he had.
And not being part of the experience myself, having not played professional baseball, but having kind of inkling. You watch TV shows and movies on this stuff and Jerry Maguire, and you're thinking to yourself, do the agents reach out on their initiative to their connects? Do the players come and say, can you kind of maybe try for these teams for me? This is where I really want to end up. Or is it really seeing which teams are interested in your case?
It's seeing what teams was interested. I felt like I had put a really good run together in '99, 2000, and 2001. I had a string of 3 years in a row. '99, I had strained my oblique, so I only ended up with like 50 games. In 2000, I believe I pitched in 70 plus games. In 2001, 70 plus games. So the last 3 years of my track record being healthy and throwing the ball was pretty good. So I felt really comfortable going into free agency, and he has a good pulse. Your agent has a good pulse on where you're gonna land as far as years and dollars go, and most of the time they're on the correct side of that, and they have a good understanding. So I let them do their work on that. That's what they're good at. That's what they get paid for. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to land in a place that I was going to be comfortable.
In my mind, I think there's really three criteria for most people, and you can't get all three generally. It's money, winning, and the role. And when I projected you at the time, I thought you're going to go somewhere. You're going to be the closer. That's probably where he's going to go. He's going to have that kind of role, and he's going to get the dollars. Ended up being not necessarily the role, but the dollars were there, and certainly the winning potential was there. But then you also start. But I've heard so many things as far as people from different parts of the world that come and they say, I want to play in this city. I don't want to play in that city. Then other people are like the tax rates. There's so many things. The schools, depending if they have children. So there's so many factors that people can look at a team and say that goes beyond those. But generally, if the stats are there and the personality there and people like you, they're gonna find a way to put you on. At what point did you know the Yankees were interested?
Well, I wasn't beholden to any city or any team or anything like that. My direction to him was go get me the best deal, and we'll see where everything lands. There were other teams that were involved with my agent, and the closer role was talked about on a few of those teams that were interested in me. And then December came around, and we got to the point. I didn't want this to drag into past Christmas or anything like that. So beginning of December rolled around. I had a conversation with him. He had done most of his work through November at that time for a month, and he had everything laid out in front of him. We discussed each team. We discussed the parameters of the dollar value, and then obviously we discussed what role I was going to play, because at that time there were so many roles that I could have done, because I was doing all of them. I had started in '98 some, and then I really hit my stride in the bullpen, and that's where teams saw me, which was perfectly fine with me, being at the back end, whether it be a setup man or a closer. And we went through the process. We talked about the contracts, and he told me everything, and then I basically said, listen, give me a night to sleep on it, and I'll have an answer for you in the morning.
And can we say at this point who the other finalists were?
There were a few teams. I mean, Boston was in on it. I really liked Fenway Park and pitching there. I mean, a lot of my decision also was places that I really liked to pitch and felt comfortable when I was on the mound, because that translates into some success.
Of course.
Baltimore was in there, so I was really in the AL East mostly. There was a couple other teams because Mike Hargrove was coaching or the manager of the Baltimore Orioles at that time, and I had Mike in '98. 98 and 99 in Cleveland. So, and 2000, and he got the job in 2002 with Baltimore. So I knew Mike knew me, and he knew what he was going to get from me. So they were also a finalist. And, I obviously chose the New York Yankees for a few different reasons.
Well, let's walk through them now because it's funny about the AL East and the history as far as that division goes and how much of a powerhouse they were talking about the NL East and what was going on there with Atlanta. But man, that AL East has always been a real toughie. I'm sure also if the Yankees know that the Red Sox are sniffing around for you, maybe they're going to up the offer a little bit. But I'm sure it doesn't hurt also to be playing with a character like Mo Rivera, right?
Well, that was one of the things where I knew I wasn't going to close. I knew
Yep.
I would close some games if Mo may have gone down, which happened in 2002, and stepped in and just kind of filled in until he was healthy again. But again, the criteria, right, is it's a winning team. You know, they won 4 out of 5 World Series. They just lost to the Diamondbacks in 2001 on the blue shot by Luis Gonzalez that scored the winning run. So I knew they were going to be competitive. I knew they had money, always going to be at the trade deadline, picking up players. They had signed Giambi. That they had obviously all the returning guys coming back like Jeter, Bernie Williams, and uh, Alfonso Soriano, all those guys, Posada. Then they had obviously Pettit and Clemens and El Duque and David Wells and Mike Mussina. So I knew we were going to compete and we were going to compete well. I knew that I was going to set up for Mariano Rivera from the right-hand side. Mike Stanton was setting up and pitching in the middle of the game from the left-hand side. So, and then the dollar value ended up being, pretty similar to a lot of those teams. And, you get taxes more in New York than anything, but obviously, when your agent goes through that process, he compensates for some of the tax bracket stuff and tries to get a little bit more money. So I was very comfortable with, the years, the role, and the money. And the next day I called them back and told them what my decision was, and that I wanted to play for the New York Yankees. And growing up there was definitely an added bonus, even though it comes with some challenges with having friends and family in the area.
So I guess the Mets were not calling that particular year, and you're focused, you're saying, on the AL side. But before we get into how that year transpired, was there ever a point that you came close to being with the Mets, as far as you know?
No, there was not, and Texas was in on that, in on those teams as well. There's those 4 teams, and it was mostly American League teams. So
Texas, I don't know. That's for pitchers, it's kind of like Colorado, right? A bit. It's can be intimidating, I would say, as far as
it was hot. They
yeah.
didn't have a roof at the time, but that we can spin off into another chapter because that's a whole different story on how that transpired as well. Because John Hart was negotiating the contract with me in Cleveland prior to trading me for John Rocker in 2001, and he left in 2001 at the end of that season and took the GM job for the Texas Rangers in 2002.
And tried to get you over there.
That's correct.
Well, whenever you look at signings and off seasons, it's always interesting the ones that sign in early December, because once Christmas hits, New Year's hits, like you said, it gets to be a bit of a scary period at that point. Then you're starting off in New Year. Some people sign early in January. If I was a player, I'd never be one of those ones that are not signed in spring training is just around the corner. It's nice to have that certainty, move on with your life, right, and continue on. That being said, now, how did it feel the first time putting on that hat? When did you get to put the Yankees hat on for the first time? Was it at spring training, or were you trying them on after the signing?
No, after the signing. Once I agreed to the deal, I had to go and fly to New York. I had to do a physical, make sure everything was intact, so to speak. And they did the full physical on me. Got to the stadium, had a small press conference with a couple of the other guys. Rondell White was there. He had signed.
Former
John
Expo, yeah.
Vanderwall. Yeah, John Vanderwall was there. Jason Giambi was there, and myself. So I was able to, go to Yankee Stadium, underneath, and then put the hat on and put the jersey on, walk on the field, and it was a pretty amazing feeling. I mean, you grow up in New York, and you know the history of who has played at old Yankee Stadium. All the greats in the outfield and the infield, and then to be able to walk on the field and just kind of go through Monument Park and have an understanding of that. You go there as a visiting player, and it doesn't hold the same sentiment. It's one of those things when you have a Yankee uniform on and a Yankee hat, you walk through there, it fills up with chills.
How different for you as a player and as a fan of the game was old to new Yankee Stadium? Did you ever assess the differences between the two facilities?
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you because I've never stepped foot in the Yankee Stadium.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would have guessed as a native New Yorker, for sure you'd have been there at some point.
I have not gone back, never played against the Yankees in the new stadium as a coach.
Yes.
Obviously I got done before 2009 was the first year of new Yankee Stadium, but have not gone back or stepped foot into the new Yankee Stadium.
So when you're signing there, you know the role. You're going to be the setup man for Mariano Rivera. Pretty freaking cool.
Yep.
One of the greatest, if not the greatest closers of all time. And
Yep.
you're also Mariano insurance because you never know what's going to happen. And sure enough,
correct,
it ended up happening. 12 saves that year for yourself. Mo got 28. Those were your last MLB saves ever after that year.
Yep.
Was it a difficult thing from your perspective, knowing that maybe the closer job will not happen again, that I'm going to have a different kind of role? Did you divest yourself of it? Was that difficult?
Not difficult at all because I had opportunities to sign elsewhere to be the closer. So that was a choosing of my own mind and of what I wanted to do. So for me at that point, it really wasn't about being a closer and stacking up saves. It was about winning. I signed a 4-year deal with the Yankees. I got paid very handsomely for that at the time. I was the highest AAV pitcher that was a non-closer. My agent did a great job, and I was extremely happy walking into that situation, knowing what my job was and what I was going to do, and having a chance to win every time I went to the ballpark.
I think knowing that you can have that role, like you're saying, if you wanted it, and the fact that you're beside Mariano Rivera, literally anybody who's going to be in the league and you're sitting in your position, they're going to have your role. Nobody's unseating him at this point. Now, what was the feeling meeting him as a teammate for the first time?
Oh, it's great. He's fantastic. As easygoing as you could ever imagine. Easy to talk to, loves to talk baseball, and just learned a lot from him during the years I was there. I mean, it's everybody on the outside sometimes thinks like some of these guys are uppity up and they're not going to talk, and they're doing their own thing, and they've had so much success. But most of the guys, I would say 95 to 98% of the guys are down to earth. They're just like a normal human being who you are friends with. Now they're your teammate. So walk into there, you meet them, you get along with them, and when you sit there and you look around the locker room and you have 25 guys that are your teammates that you're going to spend 8 months with, you get to become very friendly very quick.
I remember going back and watching tapes of Mariano when he was a starter coming up, watching him early on, and it's amazing, because you're used to this man coming out, enter Sandman, 9th inning, done deal. But he was a starter early on.
Yeah. I mean, that's when most guys are starters when they come up through the minor leagues, because like I said before, you get a bullpen between the starts. You get to go out there and throw 5 or 6 innings, and you get to work on your stuff. You get to work on your command. And then when the time is right, if the team feels like that's not going to be the position for you, they'll transition you into, a bullpen arm, and then you just kind of see where it goes. And, he had one pitch, but he can do he could do whatever he wanted with that pitch, one side or the other, and then just buried in on left-handers. It's an amazing accomplishment what he was able to do with just one pitch and how far he took it. So it's a very special and unique human being as a closer, and I'm not sure we'll ever see somebody like that again.
How do you coach somebody like that? When you have that one pitch, when you're that established at that point, like what do the pitching coach, bullpen coach say to him at this point?
You just not try. You try not to screw him up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's at that point. That's what it is. You just kind of keep him in the straight and narrow. It's just like Josh Hader. You know, there's not too much to what he does. Very different. Obviously, he has 3 pitches and whatnot. But to me, right now, he's the best closer in all of baseball, hands down. And you know, you just try to keep him on the straight and narrow. You just try to keep his mechanics smooth and fluid, and then you let him just go do his thing when he goes out there in the 9th inning, and you just rely on, you know, his natural talent to take over.
Would you say they're parallel? Would you say that there's a lot of similarities between Josh Hader and Mariano Rivera?
There's very many similarities in the way they think, in their demeanor, and how they handle the situation. Obviously, Josh has still got a long ways to go, and you know, this is only his 5th year in the big leagues. He's got another year of arbitration, I think, but so it's 4 going on 5 right now.
Yeah.
Mariano did it for 20. Mariano had 1 pitch. Josh has 3, but Josh has a very similar pitch that is really tough to hit. The fastball he throws is very unique. It comes from a very unique angle, and guys just have a tough time with it. And then, you know, you add in all of those other factors that are very similar between Mo and Josh. You know, that's what makes them great.
Mariano was as automatic as they come. I mean, back in the day, it was unbelievable. I remember that Red Sox series in the playoffs, though, and you know they're up 3-1, and Mo's on. So this game is over, and I fall asleep on the couch watching it. I wake up, and then I missed everything, and I just see the final score. How did the Red Sox come back? You know, and you just don't see that. It doesn't happen. But he's human. He wasn't a robot, even though he was as automatic as they come.
Yeah,
everybody can have their day.
Absolutely. You know, and it's very similar with Josh. Josh gave up the home run to Freddie Freeman last year, right, in Atlanta. And it was the difference maker in a 1-run game. So listen, when you have great players facing each other and competing against each other, you know, one has to win, one has to lose, and it's not always going to go your way all the time. And you have to learn how to handle failure to be able to enjoy all the successes that you have.
Having been in the closer mentality, setup man, when things don't go your way, when that game just doesn't transpire the way you want it to, how do you walk off that mound? How do you block it off? How do you begin fresh the next time around?
Everybody's a little bit different, right? It's a personality thing.
What was your what did you have secrets particular? What worked for you?
The best thing that worked for me was I gave myself the opportunity to think about and replay it in my mind until midnight. And then once midnight hit and a new day started, I would flush it and just be done with it. It's the past. I can't change it. It's over and done with. I may have that opportunity tonight when I go to the ballpark, and I got to be ready for that opportunity. And that's kind of how I handled it, whether I was closing games and blew the game and then had to be ready the next day, or if it was setting up and, you know, gave up the lead in a certain inning. You know, it was like, okay, I can think why that happened and why I wasn't successful tonight. But at midnight, when that day turns over to 12:01 and it's a new day, I'm going to flush it and I'm going to be ready to go again tomorrow.
Living in New York when you were there and you're playing in New York, how close did you live to the stadium? How did you forget? Was it very surreal now you're living back in the same city?
Yeah, I was living in Manhattan. No, I grew up in Queens. It's a little bit different. I lived in a high rise.
You're not doing that commute, obviously.
I wasn't doing that commute, but I lived on 61st and First, between First and York, very close to the, you know, Upper East Side, and kind of in the middle between Midtown and Upper East Side. I had the FDR where I could take right up into the Bronx. I know the city well. There was 3 different ways I could get to the ballpark if I wanted to, if there was traffic, and then I always had the train if I wanted to jump on the 4 train and take it to 161st Street, get off the platform, and then walk into the stadium.
I imagine from all the cities you played in, I would assume that you were most recognized in New York. Would that be a fair statement?
I mean, yeah, that's a fair assessment. When I signed there, I had already established myself a little bit. You know, it was I was
And
having
those
success
and those
in
fans know this,
2002,
and those fans
and
know
they
their
know their
stuff.
sports. Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt, no doubt. I would say there in Cleveland, because Cleveland's such a small city,
Yes.
and that's kind of where I started to establish myself in the bullpen and had some really good successful years. So in a small town like that, if you go out to a restaurant or something, you kind of get noticed there. New York, you can get lost a little bit because it's such a big city. But again, what a great sports town. What a great place to play, and the fans really know their stuff.
I don't recall ever seeing in the papers, Steve Karsay being at the nightclub, the disco till 3 a.m, out in the alleyways. Reputation wise, you're a baseball guy. You work hard in the baseball field, and I'm sure, especially being in New York, the distractions can be there, but certainly, that wasn't, I think, your style.
Well, I was just very fortunate enough. I grew up in New York City. I got to read the newspaper, the Daily News, and the Newsday, and the New York Post every day on the bus when I went to high school. I had an hour drive on a couple different buses to get to my high school. And I used to buy the papers in the morning, 2 papers, and read the papers. So you get to understand what New York's about and the expectations the fans have for you. You know, you get to see, players that, when I was in high school, players that were playing for the Yankees, if they were out and they were in the tabloids, you get to see that stuff. So maybe I had a head start knowing that this was, something that could happen and would happen. So I just try to remove myself from that kind of situation and not be a distraction to the team.
So you can't say it, but I can say it because I did mention that I used to love autographs back in the day. And this is pre-social media, pre-internet, all this jazz. And it was a lot different back then. I remember you, Melito Perez and Luis Polonia, going off in the car at like 2 a.m. I saw you. It was so different. George Brett, one of the greatest of all time. I remember him. He hit for the cycle in Toronto. I was at the game. I missed the home run. He had the single, double, triple. He was a home run away from the cycle, and the ball bounced right off me. I missed that ball, but George Brett came back to the hotel afterwards, and he was having a good time and partying. But you would not see that today. It was such a different time back then.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. That's how guys used to unwind a little bit. They go to a hotel bar, have a couple drinks after the game. You could have a few drinks in the clubhouse, on the road. Back in the day, they don't really do that anymore. It's just it's just changed, and you have to adapt to that. But that was the 80s and the 90s as opposed to where we're at in today's game.
Much, much, much different. And as far as company wise, keeping and during the times in New York, teammates you were closest to, as far as ones that mentored you, one that also but you're now in the role of mentor as well. Who were the guys that stick out to you as far as that you hung out with the most or closest on that Yankees squads?
Well, we had a veteran team, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys. I was a little bit older at the time. There's a lot of guys there who, have kids and are married and whatnot. But, I don't really segregate myself from anybody. I hung out with, Giambi because I knew him from Oakland. I was able to develop a pretty good relationship with Derek Jeter and be able to talk with him. Obviously, Clemens and Pettit had the Hendricks brothers, so I knew them, and they loved to play golf. So you can kick it with them. My locker was next to Mike Mussina, so I got to speak with him quite a bit. So yeah, so I got to I was very fortunate to play with some great players and to learn from some great players and gain knowledge from them. So I don't try to keep myself to either pitchers or hitters, and I just tried to mingle and be friends with everybody because it's a team sport, and you win as a team and you lose as a team.
That's a big time clubhouse. That's a lot of egos. That's a lot of superstars. And how did they manage to keep them all in check? Like Giambi has a bigger than life personality, same with Clemens. But I guess when they come together in that clubhouse, we're off to work and it's one thing, we're winning, right?
Yeah, Joe Torre did a great job. I mean, you have a veteran manager, and Mel Stottlemyre was there with them. They've been together for a long time. They were in New York for a very long time. Joe was with the Mets, and then he became, over the Yankees with the boss. And he just had a knack for understanding players and handling them, and just having open lines of communication.
So the things we see on TV as far as interview wise and the personalities, the way we see it, including Joe Torre, what you see is what you get. Are they what you expect
Yeah,
of
for
them?
those guys, yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. I know Joe's doing a little bit for Major League Baseball right now, but what you see is what you get from those guys. Great communicators. When you have good communicators and everybody knows that you're on the same page with them, it's very easy to run a clubhouse.
And it blows my mind because you take any one of those guys and you throw them on any team, and they're essentially the main guy, So you have a bunch of main guys together. They were a pleasure to watch, and I'm glad you were able to spend the time with them. It would be nice to get the ring with them, obviously, but
It would have been.
yeah, but it's never too late. You never know.
Yeah.
As we're polishing off the closer mentality for this chapter, I have one question for you. His name has come up a couple times now in our discussions, come up on another podcast that I had shot before. Shohei Ohtani. Gotta ask you, my friend, because I know we're all marveling at what he's doing, and in this day and age, you don't see that. You haven't seen it for many, many years. In your mind, where he's at, I gotta ask you, knowing what you know from a coaching perspective, do you see long term him staying as a starting pitcher, pitching it all? Do you see him maybe relieving at some point, maybe being closer? What do you project for him at this point?
I think he's going to do both as long as he can. He's that talented and he's that special at being able to hit and pitch. The only way that I see him diminishing any pitching role is if he has some sort of injury, arm injury or whatnot. Is the only way I think he would kind of, filter out of that role. But to watch him doing what he's doing and to watch him on a nightly basis be able to bounce back. People don't realize how hard it is to both hit and pitch. It's hard enough to do one in the big leagues, and very time consuming to do all of that and gain all the information that you need. But he's super talented, and I see him doing both for a very long time, and I see him doing both in an Angels uniform for a very long time.
How the hell is he doing this? Considering, like you're saying, it's so difficult to do one of the roles, let alone two. And why are we not seeing more Otanis over the course of all these years?
But you're not seeing more Ohtani's because guys can't do it. It's too hard. That tells you how special this guy is and what he's capable of doing. Believe me, I think there are a lot of guys who wish they could do both. But once you get an infielder or an outfielder on the mound in a game, even cleaning up a game that's blowout and they pitch, they realize how hard it is to do that. So it's not that guys don't want to do it. To be frank and quite honest, there are just not many guys who are very talented like Shohei Ohtani that can do it.
I think he's worth the price of admission alone. And, when we reflect over the years of some of these great superstars in baseball and, you have the opportunity to see them on the mound, they're pitching in your city, go see them because you don't know when you're going to get that chance again. And it's a marvel to see, like you said, what this man is doing. It's like blowing my mind.
You know who the last guy to do it is?
The last guy to, you know what? I should know this. It's funny. It's escaping me right now. Go for it.
The great Bambino.
There must have been somebody else. Really? There must.
You come up with somebody else that is pitched and hit the way both of those guys are doing it right now, or the guy's doing it right now, and the guy who did it back in the 20s and 30s. You give me somebody in between that has pitched and hit like that, and we'll discuss it.
I agree. I was trying to think of who was the last person that was at any kind of level pitching and hitting, attempting to doing what Shohei Ohtani is doing. I know there must have been somebody.
There was Mike Lorenzen, Cincinnati.
Yes,
but it's not even close to either one of those guys.
No, that's like comparing beef jerky to a $200 steak. You can't do. Sorry, Michael, but it's facts. But I actually did do that comparison as far as I think what he's doing now, and fans have been yelling at me on the podcast from saying it. I think it's more special than what Babe did, because in Babe's day, when he's going up there as a hitter, you're facing guys that have 150, 200 pitches. They all pitch complete games all day long. And these guys were not going to performance centers in the off season, and in the conditioning they were. It was a way different time in Babe's day to what Ohtani as a hitter is facing all these specialists, and as a pitcher facing the hitters that he's facing today. It is a way different game today. If Babe Ruth came out today, I don't know if you're going to have the same results, quite frankly.
Well, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying in the era that he played and in the era of today, those are the two guys to me that are comparable, who've pitched for a very long time at a high level and hit for a very long time at a high level. And Shohei Ohtani's got a long way to go to still do both, but he's proving that he can do it.
Well, we're proud of him. We love watching him. I know Kingston loves watching him as well. Your son. I know Babe is somewhere up there watching it with a smile, probably with a beer in his hand at the bar, wherever he is. And it's great to see, because it brings excitement, like the Turk Wendells of this game that would go and brush their teeth, in between innings. That's one of the things in today's society in general, and in baseball, it's nice to have characters. It's nice to have personalities. And in sports in general, I hope in baseball we keep seeing these characters, because that adds to the flavor of the game.
Absolutely, especially when they're talented and can put a product on the field that is well worth watching.
Win-win. People thought the Turk Wendell was an interesting guy. Then they met John Rocker, and they thought Turk was actually pretty normal after that. When we shoot our next chapter, which will be chapter 10, Steve is going to be sporting the new merch. He's going to have that on together with the Brewers hat. Mr. Karsay, Big Money Grip, always a pleasure, my friend.
Jonathan, thank you. It's always fun to sit in here and talk about many different things, and talking about the closer mentality. Part 1 and part 2 has really been a joy.
And again, you don't always know where we're going with these, and you won't know where chapter 10 goes. But until next time, my friend, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.